processes that all companies need. We're often asked what makes a business sellable, what things can be improved to make the terms on which a business is sold better. These are some of them. If you stick around towards the end, we want to give you a particular lens of narrative that we utilize to maximize the odds of a good outcome here. And so the three primary processes that a business must have to be sellable, and that the improvement of which will accelerate or amplify that sales process and the terms that you'll receive, are primarily first, origination or sourcing, right? So how is the business generating sales? How is it finding new customers? And I think this was an Alex Hormozi quote, but we generally kind of think of that breakdown into four major components. So we think of paid ads, we think of warm outreach, cold outreach, we think of media. And so warm outreach being referrals, cold outreach being direct mail, direct email, direct LinkedIn, whatever it might be. We think of paid ads as just that. It can be billboards in the traditional sense. It can be Facebook ads, whatever it might be. And media being, are they putting out content of some sort? And that can be radio shows, it could be TV ads, I mean, it could be anything, but how are they getting the message across of their capabilities, of their specialization, proprietary offerings, whether it be a service product or otherwise. The second is operations. And so as a company scales, as a company grows, having the process of finding people, of retaining people, of building infrastructure for the business becomes more and more important. And so when we think of operations, we want to know, are there processes in place relative to people, to capital and finance, to technology and physical assets and infrastructure if space is needed, and lastly to legal. Now, if all of these things are in place, you usually have a pretty well-oiled machine of how the day-to-day operations of the business are facilitated. And lastly, we want to look at fulfillment or execution. So if a business has the ability to bring in business or sales or revenue, and if the company has the operations, right, to build up the necessary infrastructure to support these things from a business perspective, we also want to know that the solution, right, the goal or the objective of the company, whether that's a product, service, or offering, is being delivered and optimally so. And so we look at fulfillment, we look at execution. How long does it take to provide the service? What is the probability of the right outcome being reached every time you have a new engagement or client? And what is the pain or the challenges that a client must incur to get to that outcome, right? And so when we look at that, the outcome, the probability of the outcome, the pain or any friction relative to getting to that, we want to make sure that that process is well defined and as streamlined as possible. And so those are the three processes that we think every successful company needs. And from our experience, you can optimize the terms, whether you're selling the business, whether you're securing capital, by making these processes most efficient. So origination, revenue generation and sourcing, operations, whether that's human capital, infrastructure, or otherwise, and execution and fulfillment, providing the service, providing the good, doing the thing. And so lastly, one secret that we like to use, one characterization that we always like to use, is that in the narrative, in communicating what these processes are, the three main variables that we like to further characterize these processes as are A, reliable, B, consistent, and C, resilient. And so what do we mean by these? Reliable means it's going to happen. And so if there's a lead generation for the company that it produces, that it has produced. Consistent means that ultimately the funnel works very similarly and the processes work very similarly. And so you say, hey, we put out one perfect widget every month, but we put out a bunch that are not perfect. Well, that's not consistent. If we have leads that come in, but it comes very lumpy, well, that's not consistent as well. So even though it's reliable, that's going to generate leads, it may not be consistent in the amount of them. And so we want to see a funnel on the origination side that brings things down from a cold lead to a warm lead to an active client in a consistent basis. And we also want to see the provision of services or the providing or the manufacturing or distribution or whatever it may be of goods to be consistent as well. And lastly, resilient. In good times, all things tend to happen well, but sometimes the companies that are most successful are those that have the most downside protection kind of baked into their processes. And so what is the downside protection? What makes sure that if there's a jolt, now whether that's macroeconomic with the environment or whether that's internally, somebody leaves, a line of supply is cut off or whatever it may be, is the business and its incorporated processes resilient? So that's the thought for today. Hope the week continues to go well. Keep pushing forward. God bless. We'll see everyone next time.